Louie from Texas yields back. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gohmert, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Horwitz, there has been a massive amount of bias documented by you in your investigation. You've concluded with recommendations that appear to just be more policies of the same policies with the FBI, the DOJ already had. You understood it was already against FBI and DOJ policy to let bias come into play in these investigations, correct?
Absolutely.
Well, you made references in your report, even quoted from unnamed but numbered prosecutors and agents. Have you given us the names of those individuals?
So we have a request for them, and we are...
So you haven't given us the names, and now you can't decide whether you're going to give them to us?
No, well, let me be clear. We engaged the committee on this. We went to the FBI. The FBI raised the concern.
The answer is no, you haven't given them to us. So let me just tell you, we're here because prosecutors and agents at the DOJ have been biased, and it may have, and some of us believe you've laid out a case that bias did affect what was going on, and then you come in here and say, we're going to number these people. We're not going to let you know who they are. But let me ask you this. Have you checked to see what normally wouldn't matter, how they voted in a presidential election, except when you're investigating a nominee or a president? Do you know how they voted? Did they donate money to either of the candidates?
I have no idea how they voted, and I don't have an idea.
You're bringing this investigation in here based on and are utilizing opinions and information provided by prosecutors and agents who may be just as biased as the people that we're investigating. We just don't know because we hadn't seen their texts, we hadn't seen their emails. Normally, if putting back on my my felony judge hat, if a jury is going to make a decision on guilt or innocence of a felony of say, a presidential nominee, I'm going to let them ask the jury panel, did you vote for this person? Did you give money to this person? Do you have a bumper sticker for this person? Did you put a sign in their yard? Did you talk this person up? And yet you're coming in here, you don't know if these people you were relying on actually had any biases like the very ones you were investigating. Well, let me ask you this. Among the supervising special agents you referenced and the prosecutors, do you have any idea of the percentage that may have voted for Hillary Clinton?
We did not ask people who
Well, let me tell you, I know my friend Mr. Nadler had referenced, said, oh, you know, a big organization like that's probably just as many people supported Trump. When I heard Newt Gingrich yesterday said the fact is 97% of the people in the DOJ that donated to Democrats. 97%. So there's a good chance that the people that you're relying on did support Hillary Clinton. We don't know because you haven't asked. It's important to know who the investigators are and the people you're relying on. You mentioned in here in the report about Strzok and the relationship that he mentions with Judge Contreras. Do you know why Judge Contreras was recused, was removed from the Mike Flynn case?
I don't know why he was recused.
Or is that something you would investigate?
It's not within the scope of this investigation, as it
well, I'm going to reinforce the request for the identities of the supervising special agent, the prosecutors and agents that were only identified by numbers, and ask who they contributed to, if anyone, in the last 2 cycles. Now, in your report, you said the SSA told us that the FBI did not consider Pagliano as a subject or someone to prosecute in connection. But this guy set up the unsecured server, as I understood it. This is a guy that you had a lay-down case, or the DOJ did, and yet they don't use that leverage. They don't treat him like they did Manafort or any of these other people. The DOJ had leverage, and this is where bias came into play. They didn't go after him. You said the SSA told us he believed Gohmert should have been charged with false statements, yet nobody charged him. And why? Because bias played a role. I understand when you have an investigation, you like to give something, a little something to both sides, makes you feel good. You gave us hundreds of pages of bias, but the conclusion was just, I'm sorry, whether it was subconscious or conscious, you had a little throwaway to go to the Democrats. But the fact is, bias is all the way through this, and I'm sorry that you were not able to see that with what is very obvious from your evidence. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from New York, Mr. Jeffries, is recognized. Would you like to respond, Mr. Harless?
Can I just finish on the identity issue, just so the record's clear on that? We were asked to two things. When we write a report, we obviously comply with the Privacy Act and the other laws Congress has in place on who we can speak to and who we can't. That's the first step we do here. Much like what we lay out here with the criticisms of folks who didn't follow the rules and the norms and the law, we followed that. We then got the committee's request, consistent with our support for transparency. We would be supportive of getting the committee that information. The FBI interposed an objection because these individuals work on and have worked on counterintelligence matters, that there might be a security or safety issue. That's what we've talked to the committee about. We're happy to facilitate that issue with the committee and the FBI, but that's the objection was raised, what's today, Tuesday, Monday, I think it was, by the FBI.
Mr. Chairman, to clarify my request, it was not for anything to do with any counterintelligence. Don't want to know anything about that, just who worked on this matter.
But I think the request is clear and his response is clear. We're going to go to the gentleman from New York, and then we're going to go to the gentleman from Montana, and